In 2016, we moved into my grandparents' old home after they decided to downsize. I was just 9 years old at the time. They had built the house back in the early 1990s on a 5-acre lot at the edge of a small southern town. The area was surrounded by thick woods and vast fields, and a slow, muddy river bordered our southern fence on 2 sides. Our property connected to the only neighboring land, a strange, uneven plot with a dilapidated farmhouse that seemed to be sinking into the earth. The original house had been built in the 1920s and had been expanded over time, with no rhyme or reason, like someone had haphazardly stapled on extra rooms. The siding was faded and looked soft and damp, even on sunny days. The yard was a disaster, overgrown bushes choked by vines, broken fountains swallowed by weeds, gnomes with missing heads, and old garbage that looked like it had been there forever. Torn grocery bags fluttered in the tree limbs, and a rusted lawnmower sat in the middle of the grass, like it had stalled mid-job and never been touched again. The whole place gave off an unsettling vibe, like the kind of place where you instinctively held your breath when passing by. At the time, 2 elderly sisters, Violet and Agnes, lived in that house with 3 children. Violet rarely spoke and spent most of her time in a faded green rocking chair on the porch, quietly watching the trees. Agnes was a bit more alert and active, though her movements suggested constant pain. Both women were in their 70s, and it was understood that the children were their grandchildren. The boy, Liam, was my age and in the same grade as me at school. The 2 girls, Allison and Kelsey, were the same age as my little sister. Liam was strange. I didn't like being around him, but since we were in the same class, we often got paired together. He seemed to think that meant he could come over whenever he felt like it. No calls, no knocking. I'd be in my room gaming and turn around to find him standing there. Once, I saw him doing cannonballs in our pool without even asking. Another time, he walked straight into our kitchen and started eating cold pizza out of the fridge like he lived there. He wasn't fun to hang out with either. He was obsessed with anime, really obsessed. I didn't watch any, so I never got his references. He'd randomly shout lines in Japanese and get annoyed when I didn't laugh. Sometimes, the way he looked at me made my skin crawl, like he was picturing something violent. Once, he chased me around with a pair of garden shears, swinging them and laughing like it was a game. Another time, on the old wooden bridge behind our houses, I swear he tried to push me into the creek. He claimed it was a joke, but the way he grinned afterward told me otherwise. The twins were even more off. They barely spoke, and when they did, their words were slurred and garbled, like they were toddlers. Their clothes were always filthy. You could tell no one at home was helping them. They flinched at loud noises and looked constantly hungry. Their dad was in and out of jail, so he wasn't around. That leaves the mum, Teresa. The first time I saw her, she was trying to attach a hose to the spigot near the border of our properties. She stood out from the rest of the family, tall, heavyset, with long curly black hair and thick glasses straight out of the 1980s. Unlike the others, she looked well groomed. Her clothes were clean, her hair always styled. She smiled at me like she'd been waiting for me to approach. He asked if I could help with the faucet because it was stuck. I turned the knob easily, and she clapped and gasped like I had done something miraculous. "You're so strong," she said. "I'm so lucky you came by." It made me feel special for a second. Then she said something strange. "Did you know you have a third eye?" I blinked. "What?" She smiled even wider. "Not a real eye, a spiritual one. It lets you see the truth." Whatever that meant. Before I could ask anything else, she turned and started walking back to her house. She told me to follow. I did. The second I stepped inside, I regretted it. The stench hit me like a wall-rotting food, mold, and something worse I couldn't identify. Trash was everywhere. Ripped garbage bags, dirty diapers stuffed behind furniture, stained couches, and moldy dishes stacked on every surface. I tried to leave, but Teresa grabbed my wrist and pulled me upstairs. Her bedroom was the opposite of the chaos downstairs. It had soft pink wallpaper, spotless carpet, shelves lined with porcelain dolls, and expensive antique furniture. It smelled of roses and old perfumes. It felt like stepping into a different world. She gestured for me to sit on a padded stool. Then she walked to a vanity and opened a drawer. Out came a silver tray holding a black candle, a crystal, and a thick leather-bound book. The cover had a pentagram etched into it. My stomach turned. My family is Catholic. I knew what that symbol meant. I started spotting it everywhere, on her jewelry box, carved into the mirror's frame, even poking out from under a rug. I bolted up. "Sorry, my mum wants me home," I blurted, then ran out without waiting for a response. In 2019, Agnes had a heart attack and died right in the living room, in front of the kids. I went to the funeral, held at a rundown Baptist church. The family showed no emotion except for one woman I'd never seen before, sobbing loudly in the second pew. No one acknowledged her. That same year, Liam disappeared. Rumor was he tried to harm one of the twins and was institutionalized. My parents sat my sister and me down and told us firmly we were never to go near that family again. That's when everything clicked, the weirdness, the fear. Eventually, the rest of the family left, but they left Violet behind, alone in that crumbling house. She passed away in 2020, still in that same home. A few months later, her estate went up for auction. One of my old teachers, Mrs. S., bought the house with her husband. They tore down most of the structure but kept the original 1920s section, the same part where Teresa's room had been. Mrs. S. invited us to see the renovations. The place looked brand new, open layout, new kitchen, bright paint. But when she showed us the upstairs, something inside me twisted. Standing in that room, I could still feel it even through the new carpet. I knew the pentagram was still underneath. The air felt heavy, and I got nauseous, like the walls were watching me. I told Mrs. S. I had a headache and left. She seemed disappointed. I was supposed to stay for dinner. I avoided the house until last year, when she asked me to dog sit while they were out of town. I agreed. It seemed like easy money. Every evening I'd come over, buzz in through the smart lock, and be greeted by their dogs Muffin, the Shih Tzu, and Henry, a noisy little pug. I'd feed them, play a bit, lock up, and head out. The first 4 nights were quiet, peaceful even. But on the last night, just as I was about to leave, Henry started barking at the stairs. He stood firm, growling. Muffin backed away, whimpering. Then I heard it, thump, from upstairs, another thump, louder. I didn't wait. I ran, slammed the front door, and locked it behind me. The entire walk home, I felt like something was following me. Now it's 2025. No one's heard from that family in over 4 years until recently. A girl at school told me she saw Teresa at a farmer's market in a nearby town. She's started some kind of spiritual group now, calls herself a truth seer. They live out in the woods, in a mobile home park. Flyers have started showing up around town on telephone poles and bulletin boards. I don't trust it. I don't trust her. Teresa was evil. She neglected those kids, abandoned her mother to die alone, and I think she brought something into that house, something dark. Still dream about her. And Liam, they just stand at the foot of my bed, silent, staring. Every time I pass that house, even now, I shiver. The paint and new furniture may look nice on the surface, but that place remembers, and I don't think it will ever let go. My name is Keegan, and I live in Michigan with my parents. High school was a pretty decent time in my life. I met a lot of new people and built some friendships along the way. Most of the time I hung out with my friends outside of school, usually at the local community center where we'd shoot hoops or lift weights. This all started back in my freshman year, close to the end of the school year. I was pumped about summer break. I had plans to start driver's training and pick up a side hustle to make some extra cash. I didn't get the fastest start, but I was motivated. One of my friends back then was a guy named Clayton. He was a grade below me, finishing his final year of middle school. We were pretty good friends, or at least, that's how it seemed at the time. My dad and I even took him to a Detroit Pistons game once, knowing how much of a basketball fan he was. He was thrilled. It was his first NBA game, and he loved every minute of it. But things started to change. As I got busier, Clayton became different. He started getting upset whenever I couldn't hang out. He'd act hurt or even angry if I said I wasn't available. His temper could go from 0 to 100 real fast. I remember telling him once that I couldn't meet up because I had chores to do around the apartment. When I finally checked my phone, I saw that he had removed me from I messaged him on Messenger, asking what the deal was, and he replied accusing me of lying just to avoid him. Honestly, he wasn't wrong all the time. I had started lying sometimes just to dodge him. He had gotten clingy, kind of obsessive. I'd make up plans or say I was busy, just to get some space. But then he crossed a line. One evening after sunset, I heard a knock at the door of my apartment. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there he was, Clayton. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, staring at me with a blank expression, then slowly turned and walked away. The next day, I turned off my Snap Map so he couldn't see where I was anymore. He eventually added me back on social media, but nothing really changed. He was still the same moody, clingy, and unstable. Then came a message from my friend Nick. He didn't hang out with me much in person, but he knew Clayton and even knew his ex-girlfriend. What he told me chilled me to my core. Clayton had held A knife to his ex's throat and worse. He sexually assaulted her. That was it for me. I deleted and blocked him on every platform without a second thought. He messaged me on Instagram before I got around to removing him there too, blowing up my phone with desperate texts. I told him I needed space and that I'd add him back later. Lie, of course, just to get him to leave me alone. That night, I was home by myself. My parents had gone to a neighboring town to have dinner with old friends. Sometime later, I heard a knock at the front door. When I looked through the peephole, nothing. I cracked the door open, peeked into the hallway, still nothing. Figured it was just a prank. But then I glanced out my bedroom window. Under the burned-out streetlight near the sidewalk, I noticed something move. At first I thought it was a reflection from a car window, but then I saw it, a tall figure standing silently right outside my window. It was Clayton. I opened the window slightly and told him to leave. He said he had something to tell me and asked to come inside. I firmly told him no. That's when I saw it. He shifted, and something glinted in his hand. He held it up, a knife. I panicked and told him I was calling the police. Before they arrived, he had already vanished into the night. I gave the cops the most accurate description I could. They took my statement, but I haven't heard anything about him since. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he was planning to kill me that night. I believe that in my bones. To this day, I still think about how that situation could have ended differently. If I had stayed friends with him, I might ended up another victim, physically hurt, or This all happened in late 2022, during what I assumed would be a fun, low-key first date with someone I had matched with on a dating app. Her name was Emily. We'd been chatting for nearly 2 weeks before we decided to meet up in person. One thing we instantly bonded over was our mutual love for horror films. So when Smile came out in theaters, we agreed that seeing it together would be the perfect way to kick off our first date. We picked a Thursday night for the outing. The showing was pretty late, 10:15 p.m. at a small, older theater just outside the city. I volunteered to drive and picked her up around 9:30. She seemed nice, maybe a little reserved at first, but she warmed up quickly once we started diving into conversations about horror movies we'd grown up watching. When we pulled into the theater's parking lot, I couldn't help but make a joke about how the place itself looked like it belonged in a horror movie. Dim, buzzing lights, tired old neon signs, and barely any cars. Inside, there was only one employee working the concession stand. I asked if it was going to be a packed showing. He laughed and said, "You're the only ones who bought tickets for this time slot." At first I thought that was perfect. No crowd, no noisy strangers, just us and the movie. We headed into Theater 6 and picked the center seats, about 4 rows from the back. It was freezing inside, and Emily pointed that out right away. I offered her my hoodie, and we joked about how creepy it was being the only ones there. We chatted while waiting for the previews to roll, and I started thinking maybe this date was actually going somewhere, but then something happened. Right as the final trailer ended and the room went dark for the feature film, I noticed movement at the edge of my vision. A man walked into the theater, no words, no checking his phone for seat info like people usually do. He walked slowly up the steps and sat directly behind us. And I mean directly behind us. There were easily 100 open seats in the room, yet he chose the one right behind mine. Emily glanced back and shot me a look like, "Seriously?" I let out a quiet chuckle and muttered, "Figures." But something felt wrong. You ever feel someone's eyes on you, like they're burning into your back? That's how it felt. I turned to look discreetly and, sure enough, the guy wasn't even watching the screen. He was leaning slightly forward, not zoning out, not dozing off. His eyes were locked on us, not the movie, us. He didn't even flinch when I made contact for a moment. No blink, no turning away. Just this blank, fixed stare. I leaned in and whispered to Emily, "He's just staring." She nodded slowly, whispering back, "I know." We tried to ignore him, hoping we were just overthinking it. But as the movie went on, the pressure behind us became unbearable. It wasn't like someone being intentional. He was focused, watching. After about 20 minutes, I did another subtle look over my shoulder. Still there, same posture, still watching. He looked to be in his late 40s, clean-shaven, pale skin, wearing a dull gray hoodie. His expression was void of emotion, not zoned out, not tired, just present, focused, and I swear, he never blinked. I turned back to Emily and whispered, "This guy's giving me seriously bad vibes." She looked frightened. I asked, "Wanna move?" We debated it. Where would we even go? Same room, same guy. But then it got worse. I felt something. He breathed on me. Not loud or dramatic, just this slow, warm exhale that drifted across the back of my neck. I spun around, and he had leaned forward over my seat, his face uncomfortably close to mine. I glared at him and said, "Dude, can you not?" He didn't speak, didn't move, just slowly sat back in his seat like nothing happened. I looked at Emily. "Let's move." We grabbed our stuff and relocated to the very front corner of the theater. The angle was terrible, but at least it gave us space. I could barely pay attention to the movie anymore. Every couple of minutes I'd look back and, sure enough, he was still there. Still watching, still motionless. About halfway through, we heard footsteps, heavy ones. He was coming down the steps. Emily clutched my arm. We both froze. The steps stopped a few rows above us. We didn't dare look. The air was thick with tension. After what felt like forever, we heard the footsteps again. "Going back up," I whispered. "We need to go." She nodded without hesitation. We grabbed our things and slipped out as quietly as possible. Down the hallway toward the lobby, I turned to look back through the little glass window on the door. He was standing now, in the aisle, still staring, not watching the screen, not even pretending, just staring at us. We rushed to the concession counter and told the worker someone in Theater 6 was acting seriously weird. His response, again, that single word made my blood run cold. I asked what he meant, and after a pause, he said, "He's been showing up randomly for like a month. Only comes to the late shows, never buys anything. You're not the first people to complain." Shocked, I asked, "Why hasn't anyone kicked him out?" The guy looked uneasy. "Management says unless he does something technically illegal, we can't throw him out." Emily was on the verge of tears at this point. She asked if someone could walk us to the car, and the worker nodded, getting a janitor to escort us out. The man didn't follow us, at least, not that night. But on the ride home, I couldn't shake the feeling he had written down my license plate, or maybe followed us at a distance. I worried that he'd find out where Emily lived. I mentioned the situation to a friend of mine who's a cop, and he told me that management can't do anything was total nonsense. The theater had every right to remove someone for making guests feel unsafe. Emily and I kept in touch for a little while, but we never saw each other again. I think the whole experience was just too unsettling for both of us. I've never gone back to that theater since. There are no reviews online about him, no posts, no warnings, but I still wonder how many other people had the same experience and never